it's Melissa here, and I'm so happy to be back with you on the Scrappery today. So today I'm making this layout, and I'm using a cut file from the cut shop, and I'm scrapping this photo of Ava in these new unicorn onesie, or it's a fleece onesie. It's more like a PJs than a onesie, but it's all in one. And when I saw this paper in the kit, I immediately thought of this photo because of the navy or dark navy suit with purple polka dots, and I thought it would just look so gorgeous with this beautiful paper. So as you can see, I've used this paper already for my cupcake album, and so it saddens me that I don't have much left, and you'll see in a sec that I'm wanting to keep as much of it as possible, save as much as possible, use as much as possible. So I've cut the corners off. I did look at that gorgeous paper on the back, the pattern on the back, which looks like a ice cream swirl, but in the end I decided to go with my first instinct, which is to use the beautiful floral. So I've just put double-sided tape all around that cut file, and I did think about hand stitching, but I've hurt my wrist and I don't have much time, so I think the effort that it would take to do that would be potentially could make me worse. So I must apologise for the quality of this video. It's a bit blurry, and I think it's because it's autumn here and the light's pretty awful. So I will be looking at ways to improve this, so if you just bear with me. So here I'm using the positive of the cut to place these bits back in, and that's the best way to get them in the right position, is to use the positive of the cut like a stencil. And you'll see me do, I think, the next big piece there on the right, and then I'll do the rest off camera. So I'm using my tweezers, which helps me position smaller pieces as well. So this was as far as I knew I'd get with the layout that I'd pre-planned. I knew I wanted a big title at the bottom, I knew I wanted my photo in the middle above the title, and the rest of it was just lots of playing about. And so when I cut that off the corner, I didn't know I was going to use it on this page, and then I just placed it there and thought it looked good. And at this point, I'm still not sure whether I'm going to have one corner or two. Just cutting my photo off. I think I've mentioned before that I use the Project Life app and I print at home, so I've got another photo of Ava there that you'll see. If you follow my personal channel, you'll see that video coming up because I've made a layout for that one as well, and actually videoed it, so getting on track with making a few more videos. So here I'm using that beautiful pink, it's like an ombre watercolor wash paper to back my photo, and now I'm just working out how to get a mirrored corner with the other side, and the trick is to flip it over and cut along like a stencil, and then you have two the same. So I'm just placing those. I've given up on my Tombow, it's all run out, and I'm sick of fighting with it, so I've thrown it away, and I'm just using some cheaper craft glue here, but you know what, it works perfectly fine. So I'm just gluing them down. That's the quickest way to adhere corners that I find, is liquid adhesive. And this took a bit of fussing. I knew I wanted to use this doily from the kit, and I should mention this is the Belle kit, and it features the Wild at Heart collection by Coco Vanilla Studio. So I'm just deciding what to do here, and I didn't want to have too big a mat because I didn't want that ripped bit to go too far down my title, and I didn't want the top of the paper to go too far up because it will limit what embellishment I can do. So I'm just going to trim off the top piece. I love using my scissors as opposed to using my trimmer because it gets an imperfect cut and I like the look of it. So here I'm just lifting the edges of those corners now that that glue's dried, and these are the wood veneers that come in the kit. You get the whole packet from the collection. In fact, if you get all of the kits, you actually get all of the collection. I love this cut apart sheet. I think it might be one of my favourites ever. I just know I can use everything on there. And I tried really hard to incorporate the word beautiful. I thought about calling the page Beautiful Unicorn and having it there. And then later on, I don't think I've cut it out, but you'll see me playing around with the placement of that word. So I've had to trim off some of the edge of the doily because I didn't want it poking above the photo. I just wanted it to appear on the side, and I'm using some craft foam and double-sided tape just to lift up that photo mat. So doing that speedily so that you can watch, but it's pretty boring, but you just get to see my whole thought process there. And here I placed the doily wrong, and I was really happy I hadn't pushed it down too hard, but you can lift it up. It is forgiving if you don't press it down too hard and if you do it quickly. So I'm loving the position of that there, and then I'm just going to put more double-sided tape behind this, and that secures the doily, and when I come to adhere it later on, I'll just be all set to go. So now I'm using the gold that came in the colour kit. It's by Kaiser Craft. I'm just checking. No, actually, no, it's not. It's American Crafts. I was checking it there, and what you need to do is poke a hole in the top of it underneath the lid just to make a little hole for it to come out. It does have a plastic seal over it. And I'm just using an old credit card and spreading it on. And you'll see this is the same plate and card I use for the gesso on my cupcake album. So just making sure it's going right to the edge so that I can see it beyond the doily and the photo. So while that's drying, I'm working on my cluster around my photo. I often do this when you're short on time, rather than go away and do something else, you can work on your cluster around your photo off the actual page. So I'm using some dimensional adhesive just to lift up that word, and it says "My Darling." I thought about putting it on the bottom, but I didn't want to cover up too much of the unicorn because otherwise this layout wouldn't really make sense. So I've just put that at the top. At this point I'm thinking of keeping the word beautiful there, but sadly it doesn't make it to the page. Here I'm putting a little phrase that says "precious to me," and that comes off the sticker sheet, and I'm now looking at these flare buttons, which are beautiful. I made sure that I pulled off the dimensional adhesive. It had come off the flare when I lifted it up, but I made sure I pulled it off and put it back behind because it's the perfect height. These flare badges are slightly indented or concaved, if that makes sense. They're not flat-backed flare. So now I'm pulling out some ephemera. I'm going for pinks and kind of navy blue, as well as some florals, and I'm just wanting to have two clusters around my photo, so one at the top left and bottom right, and later on you'll see that I extend it to the top as well. So I'm tucking a tag under there, and I'm using a glue dot now to adhere this tiny little flower. Very sweet. I did think about using liquid adhesive, but glue dot is all set to go. This little piece of ephemera says "Captured," and it has a butterfly with some soft pink, purpley kind of, looks like watercolour gouache behind the butterfly. And I've got some leaves there that I'm going to tuck behind that flower. And once again I'm using a glue dot because it's just easy and quick. And that's what my scrapbooking is all about these days, is getting it done quickly. So I'm adhering that star with a staple that adds a bit of texture as well. I thought about adding that little heart piece behind there, but I thought in the end it was enough. And I actually want to see the eye from the word unicorn, which will be in that position. You'll see that when I put this all together. So I decided I wanted to use that pink flower as well, and I love the way it's got leaves on both sides, and so I've just double-side taped it behind. But of course I'd forgotten that I had the backing of the double-sided tape still on there. So here's a hint: if you lift up the backing, you can place your element and then stick the backing back down, and that way you're not going to end up sticking your cluster to your table. So this paint isn't quite dry, but I'm in a hurry and it's dry enough, and I just tested it with my finger behind where the photo would sit. So now I'm ready to adhere everything down, and I'm loving how the peak of gold is looking just from the sides of my photo. And now I'm doing some dimensional adhesive, placing, and so I just go through and lift up the elements that I want to be popped up and just place my adhesive or my foam adhesive, and you can layer it too if you want extra lift. Now I've got that word happy and I'm thinking about that, and while I'm thinking about it I'm doing my journaling, and I didn't really know where to put it, so I decided just as something different just to put it on the corners. because I felt like I couldn't put it directly under my title, and I didn't want it to be on one side because it would make this whole layout uneven. So now I decided to colour this happy word wood veneer, and it's a great thing that you can do because you don't need to leave them plain. And so I love that this gold paint is quite subtle and has a slight shimmer to it. So it's like a pale gold and it works really well with the wood veneer. So I'm just using my tweezers and my foam brush to apply it. And then I haven't even waited for it to dry. Because I've got such a thin layer, I'm just going to go ahead and get some glue onto it, and then I will just glue it immediately where I want it, in the middle of that unicorn title. And that's the position I want, and then I'm just going to use my tweezers. They have a flat edge on them. They're from close to my heart, and that enables me just to push that down. And it's such good glue that I know it will just dry in that position. So I found a couple of other pieces where I wanted to get a bit of lift happening on the leaves and on that flower, and so I've just put some more dimensional adhesive, which is also, that one is from Stampin' Up. So my final touch is to add some of these beautiful enamel dots. They're glittery. I think they're one of my favourite things in this collection. They just go so perfectly. And so I've just put 3 around each of my clusters, and that is my final layout. So I hope you enjoyed watching this process. I forgot to add that I did use the date stamp that came in the PLK kit. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back next week.